Can you explain the idea that everything is an illusion? So this is one of the key concepts in the philosophy of Vedanta. It's also one of the subtlest and most difficult to grasp. So what does it mean to say that the world is an illusion? Let's start by looking at something that we are familiar with, the mechanism of the human experience. The moment you wake up, your senses are open to the world and they receive stimuli from the external environment. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. Those sense stimuli then react with your inner personality, your thinking and your feeling, your intellect and your mind. You feel a certain way about what you have perceived. It means something to you. Based upon that, based upon your goals, your desires, your values, you then respond back into the world. And that sets the whole thing back up again. Receipt, reaction, response, receipt, reaction, response. It cascades forwards. So let's look at this process from the idea that what we're seeing, what we're experiencing is illusory. Every aspect of this mechanism is subject to some kind of error. So if we start with the receipt part, our senses are imperfect. They may have individual flaws, which means that we don't see or hear or smell, etc., exactly what is coming through to us. Further than that, they only operate within a fairly narrow range. We can't hear anything below a certain amount, we can't hear anything above it. So what that means is that there's a whole lot of information coming into us that is not making its way to our minds and intellects. It's not being picked up by the senses. So we're not seeing the totality of the stimuli. We also have only these 5. You could imagine, for example, a science fiction novel in which there are creatures that have 10 senses, 5 other ones, which grab sense stimuli from the environment, giving a more complete picture of what's really there. Not only do we filter out based upon the very capabilities and bandwidths of the senses, but when it comes to our own existing bias, we will also filter things out. You may have had this experience. Let's say you purchase a brand new car and it's a make and model that you've never had before. What happens as you drive around the streets? You start to see that car more and more. You say to yourself, I had no idea there were so many Toyota Priuses in this city. You didn't notice that until you yourself had one. It wasn't of interest to you. And so they were filtered out. But now that you have one of those cars, now you're noticing them. A young man goes to the beach. Who does he notice? Those that fall within the spectrum of his interest. So we filter out what we don't want to see, and we preferentially select what we do want to see. So this is the first aspect, the receipt of stimuli. What happens once the stimuli get in? We then interpret those based upon our existing nature, our existing meaning structures, if you want to use that phrase. What's important to us? What's true? What's real? What's good? What's beautiful? We each have all of these different meaning structures, so that the stimuli that we receive, we will give them particular values. We'll fit them into a particular story based upon what's already present in our minds, based on memory. If you've grown up in a culture where men and women have very strictly defined gender roles, and then you move to a different culture, you might look at the way that men and women are behaving and criticize it. Others who have grown up in that culture think it's normal. You think it's wrong. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing what's good, or are you seeing what's bad? Well, it's neither good nor bad. You are giving meaning to what you are perceiving based upon your experiences, based upon memory. And we believe what already makes sense to us. Confirmation bias. If we already believe something to be the case, then we will see things that confirm that, and we will do all sorts of cognitive gymnastics so that what we are seeing fits into the existing narrative of our minds. So the whole receipt, reaction, response mechanism is subject to error at all of the levels. It's like wearing a pair of coloured glasses all the time, over your senses, over your mind, over your intellect, so that you're never actually seeing what's there. What you're seeing is what your senses and your biases are allowing you to see. There is some reality. There are things and beings. There are activities going on. Nature is exploding forward at all moments. We are seeing one narrow slice of that. And because that's all we can see, that's what we take to be the reality. It fills our consciousness completely, and so we think that we are seeing the complete picture. But we're not. The problem is that there is a complacency. We don't realize that there is this filtering out, this creation of a reality in our own minds. We don't know that it's happening. This is involvement. This is complacency. We take things for granted. And we assume that what we are perceiving, thinking, and feeling is in and of itself real for us. The best analogy we can use for describing this complacency is the dream state. When you are in the dream, you have absolutely no cognizance of the fact that that's where you are. You don't stop to think, how did I get to this place? Here I am having a meal on the top of Mount Everest with the Dalai Lama and my great-great-grandfather. You don't stop to think, how did I get here? You don't stop to think that this person is dead and this person's never met me. I don't remember climbing up here. The fact that you appeared in that place, in that moment, is taken for granted. We're not aware of the ignorance in which we are functioning. That same complacency we experience in the waking state. We take so much for granted, we consider so much to be real, accurate, true, without questioning it. And that is the role of Vedanta. The role of Vedanta is to get us to question everything. So when Vedanta says the world is an illusion, it means look at the way that you related to your dream. When you are in the dream, you presumed that this is the reality, the way that I'm seeing and reacting to the world, this is the truth. When you woke up, you realized, I thought that was real. Turns out I was wrong. Now look at the waking state that you're in right now. There is that same stamp of reality to the waking state. We think this is real. And so now we can compare. If the dream state had a stamp of reality, same as now, if I believed that the dream state was real, same as I do now, and if I was wrong about the dream state, then perhaps I'm wrong about now. When Vedanta says the world is an illusion, it's getting us to question what we think is real. And that pertains not just to the external world of objects, but to ourselves. So there's a famous story of King Janaka, who woke up one morning from a dream in which he was a beggar. Now the king was able to not just recollect the dream itself, the content of the dream, but he was able to recollect or capture the stamp of reality that it had. just how real it was for him. And this rightly put him into some confusion. He said to his counselors, "Am I the king who dreamed that I was a beggar, or am I the beggar now dreaming that I'm a king? Who are you?" In the dream, whatever personality you take on, you believe yourself to be that person. You could be a different gender, you could be a different species, you could be healthy, unhealthy, tall, short. You could be an entirely different character in the dream, and yet you consider yourself to be that person. Here in the waking state, who do you consider yourself to be? Is this who I really am? So that idea of questioning everything, that we haven't grasped the reality, is not just true of the external world of objects that we are interacting with, but it's also true of ourselves. So the role of Vedanta is not just to question what's going on out here, it's primarily or fundamentally to question, who am I? Am I real? Well, of course I'm real. Okay, what's real about me? So what do we mean by this word real? There's a couple of ways we can start to get our heads around it. The first, when we talk about something that is real, it is to say that it doesn't depend on anything else for its existence. Take the simple example. What is real love? Real love is that love which does not change. It doesn't depend upon something. I'll only love you if you agree with my opinions, if you laugh at my jokes. I'll only love you if you stay faithful to me. If you cheat on me, my love goes away. Well, then it wasn't true love. It was dependent upon something else for its existence. That which is real exists in the past, present, and future. So ask that question, what about me is real? Who am I? When you answer that question, you answer in terms of memory. Well, I'm a man, that can't change. What is a man? You define it based on your knowledge. If you had grown up in a different place, at a different time, you'd have a different set of knowledge, you'd have a different definition of it. So your assertion of yourself as a man is dependent upon what you know that to be. I'm a teacher, you could have taken a different direction in life. That role, that identity is created, it's dependent upon choices, desires, experiences that you've had. All of the different identities that you claim are dependent on something. What is it about you that is not dependent upon anything else for its existence? Which part of your identity is not created through experience, through memory? That's the question that Vedanta is getting us to ask ourselves. There is a fundamental reality. What's happening is that because of our ignorance, because of our imperfect faculties, we're not seeing the reality as the reality. Instead, we're seeing it as something else. So the role of Vedanta, the role of spirituality, is to get us to recognize the involvement and the complacency that we're functioning under at all times. The edge of the dream is not seen to us. The superiority of the waker is that we can question it. The dreamer can't question the nature of the dream state. The waker can question the nature of their experience. Is this real? If this is not real, then what is real? It's recognizing I'm not seeing what is truly there. I'm seeing what has been filtered out by my senses, my mind, and my intellect. The role of spirituality in life is to seek the truth. It starts with seeking external truth, what's really going on out there, and it ends up seeking internal truth. Who am I? What is that part of me that is intrinsically real?